Today is episode 69 with Dr. B.
Welcome to the Living Beyond ADHD podcast. If you're looking for a fresh perspective and actionable steps on hot topics from focus to follow-through to self-management and more, you are in the right place. Welcome your host, innovative educator, coach, and psychotherapist, Dr. B.
Hey, ADDers. I'm so glad that you could join me for today's episode. ADHD and executive function skills through Dr. B's eyes. Back in the late 1970s, I had Graves' disease, which simply put is an overactive or hyperactive thyroid gland. When I saw the specialist, they indicated that I had three options. 1, a thyroxine-blocking medication. 2, a substance I-131, which is a radioactive substance to destroy a portion of my thyroid. Or 3, surgery to remove a portion of my thyroid. These were my options according to the physician's education, their perception of the problem, and the protocol of that time. When I inquired about other options, they told me there were none. And furthermore, that if I opted for the thyroxine blocking medication, that if it didn't work to resolve the problem after a full year, then I would have to choose option 2 or option 3. I found the doctor's perspective to be a really interesting one, as it was limited by their paradigm of the practice of medicine and further limited by the objectification of my thyroid gland. My paradigm, on the other hand, did not include radiation or surgery. It made perfect sense to me that if my thyroid gland was the home for this hyperactive energy, then surgically or chemically removing its home would only drive it to seek another home. When I presented my perspective to my doctor, they looked at me like I was crazy and said that it didn't work like that. I guess we must have studied different physics courses in which I was taught that energy never dies, rather it transforms and it moves on. I certainly wasn't interested in that energy finding a new home in my body. So being an options thinker, I explored acupuncture, which addresses issues of energy directly, and visualization techniques, which have been researched as very effective in the treatment of cancer, plus some reading in Louise Hay's book, Healing Your Body. And all that helped me to understand the metaphysical aspects of my thyroid, which is about speaking my truth. So between the use of the medication, acupuncture, and visualization techniques with self-dialogue, I was able to release the hyperactive energy from my thyroid gland without the need for surgery or radiation. Everything that had happened to my eyes and my thyroid gland went back to normal, and you couldn't even tell that it ever happened. When my dog Sundance was diagnosed with cancer back in 2005, the doctors gave her 2 to 3 months, stating it was a very aggressive form of cancer, that all I should hope for was to enjoy her for as long as I could, keep her comfortable, and then finally say goodbye. Again, my paradigm about her condition was quite different than the doctor's. I knew from conversations with my father, who did healing work, that cancer cells cannot survive in an oxygen-rich environment. So I got Sundance acupuncture treatments to strengthen her immune system and ozone treatments to oxygenate her system. I purchased the necessary ozone equipment, and I learned to give her the treatments myself. She also received other treatments further on, and she lived for a full 13 months after her diagnosis. About 12 months were very, very high quality of life, and only in her last month did I need to focus on keeping her comfortable and finally saying goodbye. I am so grateful to be an options thinker and a skilled problem solver. I share these stories with you so you have a little sense of my worldview on wellness and how the limited options that we are often given are just that, limited and limiting. Following this train of thought a bit further, specific to living with ADHD and executive function dysfunction as an adult, the conventional perception offers symptoms as a criteria for a diagnosis of ADHD, with a treatment protocol that sees medication as a first-line recommendation, followed by education, coaching, therapy, and support groups. Executive function dysfunction isn't even in the diagnostic manual. One of my concerns is that if ADHD is viewed as this list of symptoms, which could be coming from any number of sources, and is treated to eliminate the symptoms, have we really solved the problem? I don't think so. And if we aren't addressing the executive function dysfunction, which can co-occur with ADHD, chronic depression or anxiety, traumas and addictions, we definitely aren't really solving the problem. I think the solution is much greater than the currently recommended treatment protocol. My 30-plus years of expertise in the field has shown me that with proper training and fine-tuning of our minds and emotions and behaviors, the face of adult ADHD and executive function dysfunction will change. Mindfulness of mind, simply put, is intentionally bringing your attention to the present moment with openness and curiosity. There is no judgment in that statement whatsoever. Rather, openness to the possibilities and curiosity as to what they are or what they're going to be. Mindfulness is a way of being that can strengthen your attention skills, can help you develop greater self-awareness, and support you in learning to both understand and self-regulate your emotions. Mindfulness is the basis for greater happiness and awareness of what is going on around you all the time. Socrates said in the movie Peaceful Warrior, "There is never nothing going on." Many of you may already have learned that what you pay attention to grows. Your attention may often be on problems or symptoms, not solutions. When you pay attention to the negatives, such as what isn't working, what's not getting done, what you just can't seem to handle, do those challenges just seem to grow and grow until you feel overwhelmed by them? For many, the mindfulness they practice is problem-focused. Their mind is so full of the negatives that there's no room for the positives to come in and take root. A solutions-oriented view of life doesn't ignore the problems. Rather, it identifies them quickly in order to know what solutions to be looking for or to create. Remember, your vision and purpose need to be greater than your struggles in order for you to remain determined and motivated to achieve your desired outcome. Again, your vision and purpose need to be greater than your struggles in order for you to remain determined and motivated to achieve your desired outcome. Mindfulness of emotions is the ability to recognize, regulate, and express emotions in a way that supports your well-being. There are many emotions, basic ones like anger, fear, joy, sadness, disgust, surprise, as well as more complex ones such as love, pride, embarrassment, shame, guilt. Emotions are emotion, or energy in motion. They are movement and flow rather than fixed or permanent. The source of feelings or emotions can be mind and or body, meaning you can be feeling mentally anxious due to a thought, physically anxious due to a bodily sensation, or emotionally anxious due to the meaning or the interpretation of a life event or bodily sensation. This anxiousness can result in a behavior or an action taken that's colored by or filtered through the emotion of anxiousness. So back to mindfulness of emotions. When you learn to recognize the emotion you're experiencing, such as anger, and you stay open and curious as to the presence of anger in that moment without judgment, you have a much better chance of understanding the message that anger is bringing to you. Next, you learn to regulate the feeling of anger. This means that you're not becoming anger or becoming angry. Rather, you're doing your best to be with the feeling of anger and learn what it has to teach you. Remember, don't shoot the messenger. The messenger isn't the message here. Accept the message and learn from it. There's a lesson here. Before moving on to how you express your response, a quote from Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. You have a choice of how you will express your response because expression is not hardwired into an event. So why are emotions or feelings important with ADHD? Well, because they inform our choices and our decisions. They tell us what is important to us. And because they are at the heart of how we perceive something and the meaning that we give it, we are creating our own meaningful or meaningless life. That's a lot of power. Let's reframe that and look at it another way. Since our emotions and feelings have such power in the quality of our lives, and they are our emotions to learn to do with as we choose, we have the opportunity to give different and more resourceful meanings to the experiences in our lives, and thereby increase our own happiness and our own well-being. Another way of saying this is the meanings and the stories about your emotions and feelings and life is all made up by you. You made it up. And you can make up or rewrite or reframe a more positive and empowering meaning to your feelings. Still about those same feelings, so that the meaning you give it is going to help you to move forward and to achieve what you're seeking rather than to freeze you up in your tracks. There's so much power in the meanings that we give our thoughts and our feelings and our emotions and the events of our lives. Charles Darwin said, "It is not the strongest species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the ones most responsive and adaptable to change. The capacity to shift back and forth between emotional states is key." He's speaking of our ability to self-regulate and to express resilience with what life sends to us. This is definitely an important executive function skill to fully develop because we'll need it daily for the rest of our lives. Over the years, ADHD has been called a lot of really, really horrible things, like mental retardation, a moral defect, an inattention deficit, and more. However, ADHD has yet to be officially named a dysregulation condition. According to Georgia A. Degani, PhD, interventions need to help the person to learn to modulate or alter their arousal and their sensory registration, to sustain attention, and to develop self-control and mastery in a variety of social, work, and everyday activities. A comprehensive model for treating attentional problems that incorporates cognitive, behavioral, and sensory integration approaches. That's what she's talking about is needed, and that's definitely more than just medication. Because to me, she's talking about the importance of training. And what about your beliefs? Why are they so important? Well, let me explain. Your mind doesn't care whether you believe something is good for you or not good for you. It doesn't sort for that kind of criteria. Rather, whatever you believe will directly influence your thoughts, choices, and behaviors, as well as the outcomes in your life. So whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're going to be right either way. Transitioning here, I want to say a few words about stigma, shame, secrecy, and self-judgment. First, stigma. What we have here is a configuration of a brain and a mind that has been stigmatized and diagnosed based on symptoms and history. Ridiculous! Signs and symptoms can be indicative of many sources. They don't just lead to one source, one cause, or one conclusion. How people present themselves is what's stigmatized and yet not fully understood by the people doing the stigmatization. Shame, a painful feeling of humiliation or distress that's caused by consciousness of wrong or foolish behavior. Shame is about saying that your essence is bad or wrong, that you're defective to the core of you, which of course isn't true. Shame is a social emotion, and we can't have it without others being around, or at least around in our minds. There is a sense of finality to shame, that it's the totality of you forever. With guilt, there's hope. You've done something wrong, not that you are wrong, because what is done can typically be fixed. Secrecy. In our families of origin, we often learn to keep secrets. Secrets about our parents or what's happening in our homes, and this can lead us to withhold information or the truth when we speak with others, a more guarded stance, if you will. In order to do this, we need to put on a persona or a face, not our true self. And since we are only as sick as our secrets, it's said, it's good that we learn to not keep them, especially when we're in safe places with safe people to share what we need to say. Self-judgment. I often hear adults taking responsibility for something that isn't theirs to be responsible for, but they were told they were responsible for it. It's very odd. They didn't cause the problem or do something wrong, and yet they're taking responsibility for what happened. Often it gives them a sense of control in their life when there isn't much of that. If I'm responsible, then I can do something. If others are responsible and don't do something, then I am really in trouble. After all, I can blame myself for my troubles if I'm responsible. Another way in which we adults judge ourselves is by giving attribution or credit to something that isn't the source of the problem. An example would be having trouble being on time for most everything in life. The natural place to look would be time management, because most would say that's the problem. However, the problem is often that the person is depriving themselves of quality, important me time. And so they steal time from wherever they can get it and give it to themselves, all the time feeling very guilty for doing so. It's not your fault. I know you think it is because it's you who is not doing or not getting things done. However, if you don't know what you don't know, and those who should know what you don't know don't as well, then how is this your fault? This is a multi-generational problem, and it needs to stop, hopefully in this generation. There's been enough pain and suffering, needless suffering by so many. It's time for healing and a better, more effective and loving way of life for all of us. And watch out for false hope versus real hope. False hope is cheerleader hope. You can do it. I know you can. And that's it. Real hope is changing how you do, what you believe, the stories you tell yourself, and supporting you to do so. Remember, there is no skill in a pill. Medication is a wonderful scaffolding if it works for you and you opt to take medication to help put you in the position to be able to do what you couldn't do before with regard to paying attention or reducing hyperactivity and impulsivity. However, if you couldn't play the piano before, you won't with medication. You will be more able to learn to play and stay on task, but you won't automatically play. I don't see what we typically talk about as the problems of ADHD as the real problems. I see these problems as symptoms of a greater problem, which has to do with a lack of mindfulness and a lack of ability to regulate our emotions and ourself when and how we need to, which is our executive functioning. In other words, our thinking, emotions, and focus lack the training that they need to serve us rather than to take us down. When I read posts in ADHD support groups, I read about so many negative experiences and various traumas, as well as mistreatment at the hands of professionals while attempting to get a diagnosis or medication or both. It's heartbreaking. So many of us have lived lives filled with so many negative experiences and various traumas that have left us feeling depressed or anxious or defeated about our lives ever getting better than they are. Instead of continuing to focus on the symptoms of ADHD, let's focus on the deeper issues of healing our wounds so that we can all thrive in 2020. It's our time, and I invite you to join me on January 3rd, 5th, or 6th for a free live masterclass on the number one way to move beyond the years of damage from undiagnosed ADHD and executive function dysfunction. You'll find further information at my website at drbarbaracohen.com/2020. And you'll find the link in the show notes. Earlier, I touched on the topic of failed attempts to get a diagnosis or medication or both from professionals. So let's look at this more closely. First, there's no required curriculum for professionals to study and know anything about adult ADHD. None. Those that have expertise have taken it upon themselves to study outside of professional requirements. So if they can't see what's right there in front of them and wouldn't know what to do to help even if they knew you were an adult with ADHD or executive function deficits sitting there right in front of them, what often happens? Many of you receive a diagnosis of depression or anxiety, which certainly can be true. However, the source may well be your unidentified adult ADHD and or underdeveloped executive function skills. So treating the depression or anxiety isn't fully effective if you're anxious or depressed because you can't function effectively as an adult. Treating the symptoms doesn't improve the quality of your life. So what tools are used to get a diagnosis of ADHD as an adult? Well, the diagnostic manual, the most recent one, the DSM-5, that was published in 2013, says it's up to the individual clinician to decide how they're going to do an assessment and make a diagnosis if they are allowed to diagnose. Just because you match a list of symptoms doesn't automatically mean that you have a condition. Without going further and looking at your family tree, taking a thorough history, ruling in and ruling out possible other conditions, the professional is jumping to conclusions. And so are you if you just answer a quiz online and decide that you have a condition. It's important to make sure that in addition to all the typical things that you might be doing for yourself, such as medication, therapy, and/or coaching, that you make sure to get your executive function skills assessed to know how well developed they are and to rule in and rule out these skills as the underlying cause of your difficulties. And while I'm talking about a higher level of care, be sure that you're exercising, getting good nutrition, restorative sleep, and support from somewhere, a group or a program. This is not a journey to take alone. So what does all this information mean to you, and why did I share it? Because I want you to be informed and get the best care available for yourself wherever you decide to get it. The point is, I've spent 68 years on this planet navigating this mental health system that isn't too healthy or too friendly, and it can be incredibly difficult to get your needs met, even when you know how the system operates. Remember, you are not what you do or don't do. that you are more than that, whether it's your time to develop these skills or not. Your time will come if you get yourself ready for it and welcome it into your life. Also, you are not the stories that you make up about yourself. You are not too old, and it's not too late for any of you. These are skills that I'm talking about. And just as you learn to walk, talk, and tie your shoelaces, if you do these things, you can learn executive function skills and strategies no matter what age you are. You are not defective or less than as a person, as a human being, because you don't yet know how to organize your thoughts or your home or stay on top of your daily tasks. Did you receive instructions or take a class on how to do these things in a way that you could understand and implement, which is key? Probably not. Speaking of classes, I'm hosting a live masterclass on the number one way to move beyond the years of damage from undiagnosed ADHD and executive function dysfunction in early January 2020. If you feel stuck and you want to move beyond all the wreckage of your past and get into action, please join me on January 3rd, 5th, or 6th. You can find the information at my website at drbarbaracohen.com/2020. As we're moving into the new year, I want to offer you some action steps, but first, let's celebrate a few wins. Perhaps you've become aware of just how much you live in the past or the future, and you've committed to live in the now. That's a huge win. Or maybe you've undertaken the task of writing a new story about your life and the meanings of the events that did happen while you were growing up. That's awesome. Or maybe you decided that time is passing and now is the time to get serious about what you want out of your life and how you're going to achieve those things. That's a fantastic win. Celebrating a win today, even if it's been a tough day, lets you acknowledge that at least something is good about today, something is good about you. And that's important, even in the worst of times. You are a precious child of the universe, and you're called a human being, not a human doing, for good reason. You don't have to earn your value by what you do. You were born with it. Your value comes from who you are, not what you do. Got it? I hope so, because you're going to continue to hear me say it, because it's so important to your self-esteem and to your quality of life. So let's transition to the action steps that you can take to start turning your life around. How much time do we have? Not much. So let's get to it. Today's 3 action steps are on the topics of self-care, life work, and persistence.
This podcast is sponsored by Pure Potential with Dr. B. You can head over to drbarbaracohen.com and find the podcast transcript. Great free content, plus information on programs and services, including the groundbreaking Adventures in Achievement online coaching program and one-to-one services with Dr. B. That's drbarbaracohen.com.
Now back to being an adult with ADHD in today's world and some action steps. The first action step is your self-care. Restorative sleep for 8 hours, no electronics to disturb you. Hydrating and cleansing your cells with pure water. Nutrient-dense food plan like veggies, fruits, proteins, and fats. Physical activities and movement like stretching or strength training. And oxygenation for better brain function. Aerobics, Tai Chi, Qigong. The second action step is your life work. Every experience is an opportunity to practice new skills if you look for it. Looking forward to practicing rather than avoiding it so that you don't call it homework, you call it life work, and you learn to enjoy it. Tracking lessons that you learn day by day so that you integrate them into your life for the next day, for the next moment. Gibran said, "Work is love made visible. Treat it this way." It's a very true statement. And every moment is an opportunity for you to choose to move forward towards your dreams or to stay stuck and stay still. The third action step is your persistence. Willing to go to any lengths to achieve your goals. Are you? Daily consistency, even in baby steps or 15-minute increments, will really move you along. Knowing your why for going after anything that you're doing. Do you know why? And knowing your how and your options so you can keep going. And remember, you already know how to persist on other things. You can look at your life and see where you persist. And then you can learn to map over where you're already persisting and what you're already doing and thinking and feeling when you're persisting. And we can use that to help you persist in the areas that you want to make positive change. Now, I know that you probably already know that self-care, life work, and persistence are important, and yet you might not be doing them. One reason could be that your underdeveloped executive function skills and strategies are holding you back. Another could be a self-defeating belief. And it isn't even enough to know either of these. So please don't stop there. You need to get into action. And if you can't get yourself to do any of the 3 action steps that I've suggested, then what I suggest is you work on your executive function skills if you can. So many adults have problems initiating or getting started on what they already know that they need to be doing, and they can't. If that's you, it might be an indicator that you need to develop your skills. A favorite quote. Germany Kent said, "Never underestimate the power that you have to take your life in a new direction." Do you believe that you have the power to take your life in a new direction? If yes, great. If not, then start with changing your negative belief so that you can make the changes that are indeed possible for you, because they are. Remember that what you focus on grows. And if you focus on your past and the mistakes that you made or things that you didn't yet know, you'll contaminate your present moments with regrets or past pain. And if you focus on your future and all the what ifs, you'll create worry and anxiety about what may or may not happen. This is you having pain in advance. It's important to plan for the future. Yes, I know. And yet keep your focus on the present moment, right here, right now, and what you can do and how you can do it with what you have. Look at your strengths, because we all have some strengths that we can tap into and leverage to improve our respective situations. Whether you're learning from my podcast episodes or live videos, or you're working with me directly, you're in my world, and I'm here to serve your needs. So be sure to reach out and get your needs met. It's up to you to take action here so that things can change for you. In case this is your first listen to my show, my website's being redesigned and it's going to be providing you with a more streamlined experience, as well as many resources that you may not have known that I share with my community for free. So be sure to make your way over to my site at drbarbaracohen.com and check out the resources showing up over the next week or so, in case there's something there that can serve a need that you have. If we don't know each other yet, I'm curious about your pain and how it's impacting your life. I say that because no matter where I look, it seems that many people are in pain and suffering, many times needlessly, because they don't know there's something positive that they can do to eliminate the suffering. If you've been tethered to the events of your earlier life and you don't know how to move forward and embrace a new life path for yourself, I hope that you'll join me on January 3rd, 5th, or 6th for the free masterclass that I'm presenting. I appreciate you showing up to listen today and in the future. I'm back to producing more regular episodes, and it feels really good. I apologize for the inconsistency over the past months, and it couldn't be helped. Be sure to subscribe so the newest episode will automatically be in your feed. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with your friends and family as well as rate the show. If you'd like to do a little more, write a thoughtful review on iTunes so I know that I'm meeting your needs if I am. I'd love to know if today's episode was valuable for you, and if so, in what ways? I love hearing from you, so feel free to email me at drb@drbarbaracohen.com. It means a lot to me to know that your life is getting a little bit better every time we get together. Be sure to check out the show notes for all the resources I referred to in today's episode. I hope to see you in the Facebook group, Living Beyond ADHD, enjoying the live videos I do on my Dr. B Facebook page, following me on Instagram, as well as joining in the live masterclass in just a couple of days from now. That is, if any of this is of interest to you. Thanks for listening. Until the next time, bye for now.
Thanks for your undivided attention. If you're eager to make positive changes in your life, head over to drbarbaracohen.com to see how Dr. B can help you today. Whether you love making changes with community support in a group environment or prefer one-to-one coaching or psychotherapy, you'll find all the information you need to get started at drbarbaracohen.com.